The government's also been working to keep the economy up and running, and they've not been shy about throwing large amounts of cash at the problem. But is it something we can afford, and where does all the money come from? Here's Alan Kohler on a Sunday to explain.
After a decade of criticising Labor for its legacy of debt, the coalition government has had its treasured surplus snatched away by the coronavirus, and they're taking us into a whole new world of government debt. Now, the history of Commonwealth government debt is mostly a tale of war and depression. After the GFC, the government was finally getting into a position to start paying off some of it when that plan had to be thrown out thanks to a new recession and more than $200 billion worth of emergency fiscal stimulus. So now what? Well, here's a chart of deficits since Federation. Next year's budget won't be till October the 6th, but on the end there is a guess at what it might look like. But that's just 1 year. Now focus on what happened after the last 4 recessions in the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. Each time it took about 10 years to get the deficit down. The GFC also took 10 years, even though it wasn't a recession. So will it be another 10 years of deficits after this recession? Well, who knows? Maybe there'll be another mining boom. Maybe the coalition will break the habit of a lifetime and raise taxes. Now, 3 points to note. First, 5 years after the war and a deficit approaching a quarter of GDP, Arthur Fadden brought down a surplus thanks to the post-war boom. Second, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg says they'll make sure something like that happens again this time. And third, this time around, the Reserve Bank is buying government debt using freshly minted money. Now, the Australian Central Bank has been buying government bonds since the 20th of March as part of its contribution to the coronavirus war effort. So far, it's bought about $25 billion worth. At this rate, it could soak up the debt from the 2020 stimulus packages in 4 months. Now, we don't know what the RBA's intentions are, but if it kept going, then in a couple of years it could be the proud owner of all the government debt that's about to be issued to pay for the coronavirus recession. The Reserve Bank might be independent, but it's part of the government. What happens when that debt has to be repaid to the Reserve Bank? Well, no one knows, including, I suspect, the Treasurer and the Governor of the Reserve Bank, Philip Lowe. What Dr Lowe won't be keen to do is give politicians the idea that there's a magic pudding of printed money. There sort of is, just don't tell the politicians.